This is Wild Nevadacast. I'm Dave Santina, and I am wondering if you are a reader of the Reno News and Review. If so, you very well may have read the work of Helena Guglielmino, who describes herself as a freelance writer with a hiking problem. I love that description. It makes me smile. I think I could probably name a couple people, maybe a Wild Nevada host who has the same issue. So, Helena, thank you for coming in and talking to me about all that you do. I think it's really going to be interesting. I learned of you from the Reno News and Review, and I see that you write the outdoor articles, and immediately I think, oh, there's somebody who we should talk to because you probably have great experiences and great ideas. But you've been doing that for not too long, right? Just within a year?
Yeah, not too long. As of now, it's been about 3 or 4 months. So.
Yeah, so really fresh.
Yes, very fresh.
At the time we're recording this, Helena is a fresh writer for the News and Review, but you've been writing for years. Yeah,
I've been writing in the outdoor space for the last 3 years or so.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so when you say you're a freelance writer with a hiking problem, my impression is that you've been hiking before you were writing.
Yeah. Yep. I've been hiking pretty regularly since I got my dog, this adorable, crazy lab border collie mix who requires 10 hours of playtime every day. It's the last 10 or 11 years we've been pretty dedicated hikers.
Okay. And so that has turned into some really interesting articles and some good information that you have shared. You based on what I've read, you're a really good source for descriptions of locations and activities, and you're writing some guides. You're helping people to make plans for trips, that kind of thing. So it seems like you're the right person to talk to about some of this stuff. I saw one of your articles in the News and Review. You were recommending wildflower locations, right?
Yeah. I don't know if a lot of people associate the high desert with wildflowers. So I wanted to showcase some of the really beautiful flowers that we have here and highlight some of the places that are incredible to go see them. So
where are good wildflower locations? And I say this understanding that that's all dependent on the time of year, right?
Yes, very dependent on the time of year. I was out, Huffacre Hills in early April, and there's tiny little violets all over the place there, but they go away quickly. I would say for your kind of traditional springtime flowers, going along Evans Creek at Rancho San Rafael Park on the north side of McCarran, that's a great place to go. Hidden Valley is a great place to go as well. There's tons and tons of flowers that you can find there throughout the warm season. And then there's other places nearby, along any of the creeks that we have here, Hunter Creek, Thomas Creek, Galena Creek. Any of these creeks are going to be great places for wildflowers as well.
My assumption, based in my own ignorance, is that the hotter it gets, the less likely you're going to find wildflowers in the lower elevations, but maybe higher up, you still could see some?
Yeah, you can definitely travel up the hill as the season warms up. A local flower enthusiast. I spoke with her to write the article, and she definitely recommended start low, and then as the season goes up, into August, you can find some blooms up in like Tahoe Meadows, for example. So you can definitely just chase these things up, which is kind of one of the incredible things about where we live, is that we do have this extended season for things like that.
Cool. So the later it gets in the summer, maybe the higher you should look.
Yeah, I think so.
As a rule of thumb, I just made that up, but is that a reasonable rule?
I think, a rule of thumb, generally, I think that's going to be correct. I don't consider myself an expert, so I couldn't tell you exactly.
Right.
But there certainly are things that bloom down here later in the year. One thing that everybody loves to hate is rabbit brush.
Right.
But we see that in the fall here, gorgeous yellow all the time. It's a general rule, but yeah, certainly if you want to see some of the more classic wildflowers, you can chase them up the hill.
Okay, I will take that under advisement. Thank you. I looked at a number of the articles you've written, the News and Review specifically, but you've written for others. You've written for Outdoors.com and RoadTrippers.com, among a number of other outlets. And one thing that I noticed is the article you wrote about the Gear Hut and the people who run the Gear Hut and their mission to bring outdoors to people who maybe aren't normally going out there for various reasons, but in this case, gear related. And it's similar to the Wild Nevada idea, which is, show people what is available to go and enjoy and hopefully inspire people to go out and do it themselves. So I like that there's a company there that is kind of dedicated to encouraging people who've never gone out or maybe don't have the equipment or don't feel like they have access to the equipment in order to do that.
Absolutely. And funny enough, Washoe County's Trails Program Coordinator, Christina Thayer, recommended that I speak with them. She's an awesome resource. She's so knowledgeable about the trails in the area, and she's helping to bring sustainable trail systems to the greater Reno area. But she suggested speaking with the owners of Gear Hut because they have long been trail advocates in the area. They actually have adopted the Half-Acre Hills, and so they do monthly cleanups out there, which is really amazing. But their thesis is it kind of hits on one of the issues of getting into the outdoors, which is money. Certainly,
right.
Outdoor gear can be so expensive, especially when you're talking about getting into mountain biking or something like that. But even something as seemingly not nominal as a backpack to go backpacking can be very pricey. And so buying used gear helps alleviate that. And kind of the point that I was trying to make in the article that the owner was talking about is if you're new to something, you might not like it. And why would you drop $300 on a new sleeping bag if you find out you hate sleeping outside?
Good point.
So it's it kind of lowers that that risk of the cost of getting outside, but it also helps with another barrier to entry, which is knowledge. Knowledge is a huge reason why people don't get into the outdoors. Knowledge of places where to go, how to do things, and just feeling like you have support from other people. And so part of what they do also is they host events. They did an intro to bikepacking event, and it just brings people together so that they can learn, they can hear from people who are maybe more advanced in that sport, and they can get past some of that knowledge barrier so that they feel more comfortable entering into whatever sport in the outdoors like that.
I love it. Yeah, I'm not what you'd call outdoorsy normally, but programs like that open the door and they sort of ease that barrier, that obstacle. In my mind already, I'm interested in this. So this is the company's Gear Hut that does this?
Yeah, Gear Hut.
So people interested in pursuing that, they need to look up Gear Hut.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a great place, and I've been in there several times, and the owners are amazing and super helpful, but their staff is as well. And I feel anyone should feel comfortable going in there and just asking questions. Maybe you don't know the best place to go backpacking with a kid, or you want a good fishing spot or something. You can go in there and ask them. And I feel like they're a great resource.
Yeah, I remember from the article that they said they're not outfitters or guides or experts. They just are enthusiasts who looked around and said, "There's no place for people to have access if they don't already have this gear. Let's help make that a possibility." Kind of a noble mission they went on.
Yeah, and something else that I talked to Leah, the owner, about is that that was a huge point. She was like, I am kind of a jack of all trades. I like almost all outdoor sports, but I'm not an expert in any of them. She's like, you will not catch me going down the chutes. Like, I'm not doing triple black diamonds, whatever. And that also helps. It's so intimidating if you go and you're talking to somebody who's an expert who is doing those types of run when all you're trying to learn is how do I get out of French fry and pizza,
Right.
you know? And so that's another reason why they're just a great knowledge base, is because they're not intimidating. They're not going to throw all these terms at you with the gear. There can be so many little intricate gear terms that can be really intimidating.
Yeah.
You go in and you're like, I don't know what the R value is. I don't, why do I need to know what the R value of my sleeping pad is? That's so beyond exactly.
What is the R value? What does that even mean?
The R value is basically how much insulation you're going to get from your sleeping pad.
Okay.
Which for an average backpacker in the summer in Tahoe, you don't need to know that really.
It's not cold enough to be dangerous.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. Now, if you're going to go on a winter backpacking trip, that's a very important thing to know. But if you're at that stage where you're camping in the snow, then, you know, you're probably already past those barriers.
You're going out there with some purpose. If you're already making that trip, you know enough to know you have to be prepared.
Exactly.
Yeah. You're one of those people. You winter backpack, right? I saw you on an Instagram video where you were in the Sequoias.
Yeah, that's right. I wouldn't say that I'm a winter backpacker, but I have gone on one trip.
Oh, it was okay. One trip.
And maybe more in the future.
That makes you more than me. I'll say that.
That is a very intimidating sport to get into. There's so many risk factors with going out into the snow, but I had the opportunity to go backpacking in the Mariposa Grove of giant sequoias in Yosemite, and you can only camp in that grove when there's enough snow to protect the trees, enough snow to ski on. And yeah, that was a crazy experience. It's very difficult bringing a backpack in snow, very heavy.
I can only imagine. How did that happen? How did you get that opportunity?
So through working with the Save the Redwoods League, I've been writing a few articles for them here and there. And that was an opportunity I brought up to them. You know, here's this thing, there's not really dispersed camping options in any big tree grove, the coastal redwoods or the sequoias. But Yosemite offers that in the winter. So I said, well, if there's enough snow this winter, I'm happy to go try it. And they were thrilled to have the story. So
that's fun. That's fun. And I watched this video. You seemed a little giddy. It was like you were in this amazing magical place. Yeah.
So that was, by the time, let me tell you, it was about 4 miles from my car to the campsite. And that 4 miles took, 4 hours. It was a very long day to get there. Like I said, it's really hard to travel with a heavy pack on snow. And maybe I just wasn't in shape enough, whatever.
I'm very familiar with that feeling.
Yeah. So by the time I got to camp and got set up, I was exhausted and just like so past that point. And as soon as I set everything up and I was getting my dinner ready, I look up and I actually saw a bobcat running through the space. And I looked over at him and he looked over at me and we both looked so shocked. He had no idea that anyone would be there. Maybe he did, I don't know. But it was just one of those moments that everything in the forest was so silent. There were no other people camping back there. All the day hikers had already gone home. And it just felt like, I don't know, this like secret little world that I was able to experience. And it felt very special.
That is a great argument for getting out and exploring the outdoors, right? Moments like that, although that was unique, very rare. You can have smaller versions of that from time to time, almost on a daily basis when you go out, right?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I think that's part of what makes the outdoors so special is that, here in town, like I've had magical moments just hiking up, the Upper Evans Creek Trail at Rancho San Rafael. And you get up to the red rocks that are up there and there are some people that are up there, but usually it's pretty quiet and you go up there around golden hour as the sun's setting and it feels like that too. It feels very special. It feels like you get to see the city and the environment and all of our foothills and mountains here in a very different light. And yeah, definitely.
I think it's one of those situations here where I take it for granted and a lot of people who grew up here probably take it for granted. And then when people come from another place and say, this place is amazing, you are a few minutes away from every type of atmosphere or every type of environment. And there are very few places in the world that feel like that. And you came from another place, right? You weren't born here.
No, I wasn't. I'm from Fresno, California.
Okay.
Which, it's centrally located to a lot of outdoor things, but it does not offer great outdoor recreation. At least not accessible outdoor recreation. You have to have the time, money, resources to be able to drive an hour and a half or more to get to places like Yosemite. That is one of the incredible things about living here in Reno. And it is very apparent to me that we live in this big metropolitan area, and yet we have so many hiking trails that are back up into neighborhoods. We have, a handful of different lakes in the area, so many different creeks, a major river running through it, so many possibilities. And there's practically year-round access here as well.
Right.
Yeah, if you're a mountain biker in Truckee, your season is limited, but down here you can, without the snow or mud,
Sure.
Take a few days out, but practically it's year-round down here, which is amazing.
Yeah, and so I have, the older I got, the more I realized how nice it is to be in a place like this. Because when I actually grew up here, and all I wanted, everybody wants to leave.
Yeah.
Wherever you are, right? You're a kid, you want to go explore. But later, as an adult, I thought, okay, I get it now. I get why people love it here, because look at what's available, and all so close by. And that is now it's a huge selling point for all the people moving here, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. The Wild Nevada series is it's hard about road trips in Nevada. 2-day trips. Most of the time, it's 2-day trips. You did a story for roadtrippers.com about a Dark Skies and Ghost Towns tour, or sort of a haunted tour of Nevada, and I thought that was it felt very much like something that we would have planned for a Wild Nevada episode, only more places than we would have made in one episode. But I thought, this feels like something we would have taken you along on if we were doing it in a show. It was pretty interesting. How did that come about, that story?
Honestly, it came about, I gained a huge appreciation for the state of Nevada after reading local author Michael Branch.
Right.
And he talks about, in Rants from the Hill, he talks about living in rural northern Nevada and all the adventures spread out across northern Nevada. And it's where I learned that the state has over 300 mountain ranges all of these incredible opportunities. And so I literally got a huge state map out and kind of looked at all of the different things and was like, ooh, this looks cool over here. And all of these things look cool over here. And then, of course, we have a national park on the east side and the state dinosaur, the Ichthyosaurus, and we have that park there too. And so, just kind of mapped out this thing, and we took about a week and a half and drove up. We went to the Dark Sky Sanctuary at Massacre Rim, which is a fantastic experience. We got to camp out there, and some really cool stories from there too. And then went through a few ghost towns along the way. Went through Austin, went to the hot springs out there. Went into Great Basin. Got to see the Bristlecone Pines, got to take a tour of the caves down there, came around and did the Berlin Ichthyosaur State Park, which is really cool. Unfortunately, the museum was closed when we were there, but definitely a thing to go back to.
No doubt, yeah. So was this solo? Did you have someone with you? Do you have a guide, or do you just explore it on your own? When you're going on a trip like that, what's the plan to write? Because you're going to write about it eventually.
Right. So I had a loose plan. I was talking with road trippers before this, so I gave them kind of a loose itinerary of here are the places that sound interesting.
Okay.
And does this sound interesting to you? And they said yes. So we went with it, and it was just my partner and I and our dog.
Nice.
And yeah, I mean, I'm the type of traveler that just kind of gets in the car and goes. So I knew briefly about each of these places and kind of what I wanted to do there. But I'm a big fan of going into a place and kind of dictating what you want to do once you get there.
Yeah. Do you like to just go somewhere when you're going to travel relatively unknown, or is there any? Do you prefer to go to a place you've been in love? Is there a preference there when it's time to get out?
I mean, that's a hard question.
Thank you. I feel like I've done my job.
There's so many places to explore, and I love before I go somewhere new, I love not knowing much about it. I love my partner will bring up pictures and try to show me, and I'll swat them away because I don't want to see it until I get there. But then, yeah, I mean, there's favorite places that we return to year and year again.
Sure. What are your favorite? What are your return tos? Are there a few that stand out for you?
We spend a lot of time in the Eastern Sierra, which is another great benefit of where we live. Is that within 3 hours you're down in some of the most gorgeous parts of the Sierra Nevada. We go there a lot, and then, I mean, in town, if I'm going for a hike, I have my favorite places. It's definitely. I've said Evans Canyon a million times, but definitely the Evans Trail at Rancho, and Hidden Valley is a great place. I love that. Hunter Creek area. And actually now I have a bunch of new favorites because I've been working on a hiking guide for the area. So I've explored places that I didn't ever think about before, like Sun Valley, down in Washoe Lake State Park. There's some really amazing hikes down there. So there's a bunch.
Yeah, I got to do one Washoe Lake State Park hike for one of the episodes for Wild Nevada. We did the little one that gets to the gazebo.
Oh yeah, Dead Man's Overlook.
Dead Man's Overlook, right?
Yeah,
right. That was fun. I remember the ranger, giving us the story of the dead man, and then we went up and we were trying desperately to avoid the nettle because Chris Orr gets horribly she reacts horribly to nettle. I just remember this is one of the things I know is that the allergies are massive there. So I remember the nettle, and I remember getting up to the gazebo and the wind.
Yes.
As we were trying to record us enjoying the beauty of the view, and it's just the wind is everywhere, and I thought, we ended up hiding under a rock shelter so we could talk. Otherwise you'd never have heard anything. We'd just be flapping our lips in the wind. But that was a beautiful, not that long of a hike, like a mile, and it was, you end up in a great view area with the entire valley laid out in front of you. Incredible, and so close to here. Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, that's one of my favorite hikes now. It's so great. And talk about a place for wildflowers. There's a bunch of wildflowers that you can see out there. But yeah, I actually just finished editing my write-up for that hike for this book, and going back, I described the winds in great detail. Borrowed a little bit from Mark Twain to help me describe that. And just the incredible amount, I mean, just visually in the spring, all of the colors that you see there, the bright greens and the yellows from the wildflowers and the red rock. And then you have Mount Rose in the back. And the last time I went there was still a bunch of snow all over it. And I mean, visually, it's just amazing. And it's not a very long hike. It has some elevation, but it's not very strenuous. It's a great one.
Do you find yourself ranking these things when you're writing a book and deciding what is a must include and what is a maybe, and maybe something? Is there anything that doesn't make it? At some point, you have to make edits, right? You have to decide, and there's so many trails. So how do you make those choices? That's got to be rough.
Yeah, there are so many trails. When I put my proposal in to the publisher, I had almost 80 trails that I wanted to talk about. And these are just trails. Nothing goes beyond like Galena is the highest kind
Okay.
of thing that we mentioned there. It goes from Sugarloaf Peak in Spanish Springs to Washoe Lake State Park, and everything is pretty confined to urban areas.
Okay.
Or trails that lead out from urban areas.
So for people who live in town, it's easy access.
It should be. Yeah, it should be. If you have a car, a lot of these things
Okay.
are easy access,
All
right?
right.
15, 20-minute drive. There are a few that you can get to with public transportation. And then, if you're lucky enough to live in one of these neighborhoods, then yes, you can walk to some of our amazing open space. But when I sit in my initial proposal, there were almost 80 trails, and they were like, you have to cut that back by almost half. So I had to put a few on the chopping block. And then what I came to realize as I started writing this is that there are an incredible amount of what we call social trails in the area.
Okay.
Social trails are unplanned, unsanctioned trails. So there's nobody managing it. There's nobody that purposefully built it, taking into consideration the environmental or cultural impacts of something. So a lot of my favorite hikes, I realized, oh no, these are social trails.
Oh no.
So that helped me whittle it down a little bit too.
Well, and maybe you don't want to give away your personal favorites because you don't want the people to start using them too much.
I mean, I put in some of the ones that I go to a lot. I surely do. I'm not a huge fan of gatekeeping,
Right.
especially in an urban setting.
Yeah, that's fair.
If you're going to make the effort to hike 2.5 miles up to the top of Peavine, then good for you.
You deserve it.
Yeah.
It's okay.
I'll meet you up there.
It's okay if we cross paths up there.
Exactly.
That's fair. Do you identify trails by certain categories, like maybe one that's dog friendly versus one that would be less likely to be friendly to dogs climbing, or for whoever's going to read the book? Do you have categories to help people decide which trail might be right for them?
Yeah, kind of. The book is very focused on providing trails for people that might not necessarily consider themselves hikers or outdoorsy.
Right.
People who might not have a lot of experience. So a lot of the trails I try to think about doing stuff that doesn't gain a whole lot of elevation. Unfortunately, a lot of our environment here has some uneven tread and some hard to walk on tread.
Yeah.
So
for sure.
that's part of hiking here in Nevada is you're going to have loose rock, but try to keep the elevation pretty moderate, try to keep the trail length pretty moderate, and 98% of the trails are dog friendly and bike friendly. There's only a few spots in town that aren't, and for good reasons. So I think that's generally the idea going into it.
Cool.
Yeah.
Okay. I mentioned dog because I was thinking about the story, a story you wrote for the News and Review. You took a training in avoiding rattlesnakes with your dog, right?
Yes.
That sounds fascinating.
Yeah, it's been on my mind for a while. My dog is 9 years old, about to be 10, and it's something that's been on my mind for a while. And I heard some mixed reviews about how these classes can go and the experience that your dog might have with them. But we live in an environment that has rattlesnakes, and it's not very comfortable to hike when you're constantly thinking about, oh, is my dog sniffing in a bush that she's going to get bit on the nose from,
Sure.
So I spoke with the company that hosted this, Get Rattled, and spoke with the owner, and he talked me through the process of it, and it sounded really agreeable. It didn't sound like it would be very traumatizing for Lady or anything. So I went and took this class, and it's fascinating. During this class, there were a bunch of new students, but there were also some returning students, and it was really interesting to see how much the returning students remembered to avoid the rattlesnakes. There were ones that wouldn't come anywhere near. They would just sit down,
Wow. Okay.
not go anywhere near the snake at all, and they had a few different stations set up. But yeah.
So it works.
It works.
Wow. Okay. So
Yeah.
it sounds like you can endorse taking a class like that. It's worth the effort.
I think so. Yeah, I think it works for most dogs. Yeah, the owner said labs sometimes have a little bit of an issue just because they're so derpy. And my dog is part lab and she's very derpy. So,
What, derpy?
Derpy, very derpy.
What is that?
She just, for my dog specifically, she just gets so excited about everything. And she's just like a kid in a candy store anytime she goes outside. So she's a very intelligent dog, but not always. Got it.
So you got to keep an eye, even though the training may be in there, still you got to keep an eye out in case of too much derpiness.
Yes.
I've learned a word today. Derpy. All right. I'm going to have to see if I can figure out how to spell that. So with all the talk of trails and the trail guidebook that you're working on, all this, I want to touch on one other thing, and that is that you don't just write about them. You help maintain them, right? You work with the Tahoe Rim Trail. I read you told me something about that when we talked before today. What do you do with the Tahoe Rim Trail?
I am part of the first ever staff trail crew for the organization. The organization has a long history, and it's been almost exclusively volunteers that have built the trail, planned the trail, maintained the trail. And so this year, our crew gets to go out there and help them with this. We'll be basically just maintaining the trail, making sure that, we're building proper drainages, getting trees cut off trail, and making it accessible for people. The winters are pretty harsh, and I
can only guess, that when spring comes and you go back out to look at the trail condition, there must be places that just scream, we need help right here.
Yes. Yeah. One of the volunteer segment coordinators was telling me that within one winter season, 150 trees can fall over the trail, just over the trail.
Wow. That seems like so many.
Yeah.
Now, it's a huge trail. I mean, how many miles around? It's
172.
Yeah.
Yeah. Not counting all the access trails to get you there.
Okay.
So it always varies depending on who you talk to. But if you're including the access trails, about 200. Which Tahoe Rim Trail helps maintain, but the trail itself is 172.
Yeah, so no shortage of work to maintain it, right? I got to spend a day with a trail crew up at Tahoe Rim Trail. I'm wearing my Tahoe Rim Trail socks that I got as a gift, by the way, from the nice people at TRT. Thank you again. But that trail crew was incredible to see in action. Almost entirely volunteers, and just super passionate about what they were doing and completely committed to what is very hard physical work. I was really impressed.
Oh yeah, it's very physical work. You're carrying in a bunch of tools, 2, 3, 4 miles, and then using them on the trail to cut down trees or improve the tread or whatever it may be for that assignment. But the organization is very lucky. They have really, really dedicated volunteers, and they have the trail broken out into different segments, and each segment has its own segment leader or segment coordinator who takes care of that with a team underneath them of dedicated volunteers. And some of the segment coordinators have been there 20 plus years. So they are very passionate about it because this is their trail. They helped build it. They see it every year. They have walked it thousands of times. They're very passionate about it.
They do amazing work. And I gained a lot of respect for every trail I have ever been on or will ever see again because of that experience. I realized just how much goes into what seems like an easy walk in a beautiful place. But there's nothing easy about maintaining those things. It takes real work. So thank you for your work on there. I mean, you're part of that trail too. So I appreciate that you're doing it. And thanks for giving some time today to come down here and not be working on the trail, come and sit and hang out with me in a studio. Before we go, we've talked about your book that you're working on. Do you have any kind of idea yet when that might become available?
Yeah, so we're looking at fall of 2025.
Okay.
Yes.
So not too far down the road. That'll come up quick.
Yes.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure you're working hard on it, and the deadlines seem to be too soon no matter when they are, right?
That's exactly right. Yep.
The life of a writer.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Okay. So we can see your work. We can read your work in the News and Review. Anywhere else you'd like people to look for your work?
Yeah, I mean, people can follow me on Instagram. It's at the word ghoul, like GHOUL, dot the word YOU, dot Mino, MEANO. It's a phonetic spelling of my last name.
That's a gift you're giving other people. Because when I first saw it, I'm like, all right, please tell me I'm saying this right. And I was so excited when I called you to say if you'd be interested in coming on here. And I said, it's Guglielmino. And you said it right.
Yeah, you did a great job with it.
I was so happy. Thank you, Italian family, for training me. All right. So people can get a hold of you through Instagram. And then, of course, News and Review. I presume you'll be continuing to do periodic stories there, and people can get more information about possible local or regional activities and trips. There are many other stories we didn't get to that I found interesting, further out from the Reno area and outside of Nevada, but still really interesting. And so you're definitely like, you are a traveler at heart.
Yes. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. And all of those stories can be found on my website, storiesbyhelena.com. It's also listed in my Instagram. So
beautiful. So before we go, I want to remind everybody who is listening to watch Wild Nevada on PBS Reno via YouTube channel or by broadcast or live stream on pbsreno.org. There are so many ways that you can watch that show at this point. So please do. And if you have a question about Wild Nevada, or maybe a comment or a suggestion of somebody you think we should talk to or a place we should go, you want to send Chris out on a long hike up a mountain, she'd love to do it. Tell us about it. Podcasts at pbsreno.org. I'll say that again because I stumbled in the middle of it. Podcasts at Reno. I did it again. Same mistake twice. Third time's the charm. Podcasts at pbsreno.org. Thank you for coming in today. I appreciate the time.
Thank you.
Helena Guglielmino. And I thank you for listening to Wild Nevadacast.